with us so that you can have a front row seat for all of this. I am back with my friends on the panel. All right, now you have been in a boiler room, Mark Beatty. That sounds very exciting. What is a boiler room and what is Camp Clinton doing right now?
Yeah, that's a great question. So a boiler room is, on a campaign, you usually get a group of staff together who are looking at the election results and trying to get a sense of what's happening. And so prior to polls closing, campaigns are entirely focused on getting out the vote, trying to identify as many of their supporters, remind them where to vote, when to vote, and that's what they're focused on before polls close. And so there's a lot of waiting at that point. Once polls close, then they're doing a lot of what we're doing, which is looking at the numbers to try to get a sense of whose voters are turning out and how are key states going to turn. And so each campaign, or at least I know the Democratic campaign, will have a model for what they expect the election to look like in terms of turnout and support across the country. And so as votes come in these counties, they compare the actual vote with what the model said to get a sense of what's happening.
And now you're saying that the electorate that we're seeing in this election looks a lot like the 2012 electorate.
So that's what the early exit polls suggest, which is that in 2012, the percent non-white of the electorate was 28%. The early exit polls showed that it's 30% currently, and so that means it looks a lot like 2012.
All right, we know what Mark Beatty, what his side of the aisle is looking at. Izzy, what are Republicans doing right now?
I think the biggest story right now is the Senate, just because some races are being determined as winners. And we have Florida Senator Marco Rubio, who won his re-election. Ohio Senator Rob Portman won his re-election. Senator McCain won his re-election. Hillary Clinton made a lot of trips there. A lot of Democrats were hoping that she could knock him off the ballot, make some gains, but he made enough gains to win a coalition to get re-elected. So I think it goes to show that Republicans have kept a steady commitment to have a strong infrastructure to make sure that Republicans win.
Rashad, I saw you shaking your head over there over that Arizona analysis. I mean, my understanding was that Dems weren't necessarily playing to win, but they were playing to make inroads.
They were playing to make inroads. They were playing around Sheriff Arpaio, which was a down ballot race that was hoping to fuel the presidency, but I don't think any Democrat strategist worth their weight was thinking that they could knock off McCain in this cycle. Folks were hoping that McCain got knocked off in the primaries by the Tea Party candidate, and then there would be a real opportunity in Arizona. But once McCain won, there was no investments from the DSCC. There was no investments nationally. That was a race that we weren't really watching. We are watching a number of Senate races around the country, and those will be determined in Wisconsin, in Pennsylvania, and other places, which will be really determine the balance.
Well, I have a state to project for you that you were not looking at, so let me pull that up right now. We have a projected winner out of Louisiana, Donald Trump. Looks like he will be collecting those 8 electoral votes. Not a very big surprise there. Now, Lucy, when you heard the news about Arizona, part of your concern was the spillover effect into your state.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, look, you know, we're looking at the Latino vote and the turnout there very, very closely. I mean, when we saw early vote and the amount of turnout by the Latino electorate, obviously that gave us a real hope of having good wins for the entire Democratic Party up and down the ballot there. But at the end of the day, it is about resources, and it is about what the Democratic establishment and what the party and of course, what the Clinton campaign has done to invest in those down ballot races. So losing Arizona in that Senate race is not a surprise, frankly. And for Nevada, the race for the Senate there between Catherine Cortez Masto and Heck is still neck and neck, and it's been that way for, you know, as long as they've been in the race. So I think that all of these races are not, frankly, indicative, and what's happening in Arizona is not indicative of what's to come.
I really liked your internal rhyme structure with Heck and Neck there. I will have that in my head. Gabby, you know, Lucy brings up an interesting point, which is there's the Clinton campaign and the investment that they make in making sure that Hillary Clinton is the winner this evening. There's also the investment that the Democratic Party made down ballot. We have heard so much in this election, especially with early vote numbers coming in, about the power of the Latino vote. Do you think that that is actually going to play out tonight the way that Latino advocates want to see it play out?
I would hope so. But I think historically what we've seen, and a lot of us that have worked within the Democratic Party structures, is frustration that the Democratic Party doesn't put money in easy places where they could actually motivate voters. Arizona is a prime example. You have Arpaio, right? One of the most notorious racist anti-immigrants.
A race that we'll be watching tonight.
Exactly. And yet they still don't invest in getting to Latinos, not just every 4 years, but in the years in between, to educate them. You have a state like Texas. Look at the Hispanic population of Texas. Yet it's the easy path. I mean, people call me an idealist. But I think that this is a no-brainer, and Democrats haven't done enough.
Because your glass does sound a little half empty right now, I have to tell you. So if you're the idealist, you know, Jason, there's the conversation about the Latino vote. There's also then a conversation about whether or not African-American turnout is going to be on par with where it was 4 years ago. First of all, do you think that that's a fair year to compare to? No. Okay, go ahead.
No. I mean, first off, I've said this all along. Like, you don't have to be Jordan. You can be LeBron, right? Like, it doesn't. Hillary Clinton was never going to be Jordan. Okay, she was.
I'd
never
settle
going
for
to,
being LeBron. That'll be good enough for me.
I mean, you know, it's like making a half court versus a free throw shot. I mean, she was never going to be that good, right? She doesn't have to be as good as Obama with black voters. She just has to be better than John Kerry, right? Peak Obama was like 69.4% turnout for black voters. John Kerry got 61.4. She's somewhere in the 63, 64, 65. I will say this, for someone who is technically an African American, we have some good news. Ilhan Omar is the first Somalian American to be elected to the state legislature in Minnesota. That's one of those down ballot races I was paying attention to. Very good news.
I couldn't tell if you were calling yourself technically an African American, in which case I wanted more an extended
Ancestry.com tells me I'm from here.
Check on it.
Last time I checked. So
I
yeah.
don't believe you. I don't
All right,
believe
so
you.
you know we've been looking at all of these demographics, and then Nando, of course, there is sort of this other question, which is our generation, right? This is the first election in which we represent as large a share of the electorate as baby boomers, which are most of our parents. But then we always come back to this question of whether or not we'll turn out. What are you watching for? What are you looking for?
Well, I'm getting dozens of texts from all my friends, panicked beyond belief, and I mean, I still think it's going to go Hillary Clinton, but if it doesn't, it will probably largely be because you know, she's very unpopular and has a lot of problems on her, and it's just like, how do you lose to Donald Trump? Like, how could you lose to Donald Trump?
But
How do you lose
there's
to
a
that?
lot of ways, though. I mean, yeah,
It's Donald Trump. I don't. You can't lose to
There's
that.
lots of ugly, racist people in America who have absolutely no problem with someone who will be a national, global, and domestic security risk.
You cannot lose
That's
to
the
Donald
reality of this
Let's
country.
let the girl in the Make America. You get 20 seconds with the last word on this, Lauren.
All right, so here's the thing. There's two different ways to look at Donald Trump. You can look at him as he's been painted here tonight, the racist, or you can look at him as the guy who is looking out for the average American, whether that's the police officers on the street, whether that's the coal miner in West Virginia, the people that have been neglected for so long. And I don't think they're racist people. And a lot of people have come out and shown that they're not by any means racist. They support Donald Trump. So to say that he's even painted in that picture, I think, is just such a step away from reality.
All right, once we get to 11 o'clock at night, we will have ample time to debate all of this, my friends. I'm so excited to see so many of you participating in the comments section of Facebook, for those of you who are watching on Facebook. I do think we have some projections that we wanted to be able to call for you, projections